back to the podcast. You are listening to Let It Out with me. I'm your host, Katie Dalebout, and this is my podcast where I talk to fascinating people, creative people, people that I want to get to know more. And I've been doing this since 2013. If you're new, welcome. If you've been listening for a while, great. Thank you so much. Maybe subscribe. And if you're already subscribed, subscribe your friends or share it with a friend. I want to have more people listening to this podcast because I want to keep doing it because it's my favorite thing that I've ever done. If you want to start a podcast, I think you should. Let me know. I would love to help you. Feel free to email me. Okay, let's get to this episode as soon as possible. Claire Fountain is a gem. She is a delight. On Instagram, she's at CB Quality, and I connected with her because of a listener friend that I haven't met in person yet. Yujin told me about her. Thank you so much. We had a delightful conversation one evening this winter. It was March, but it was cold, on the Upper West Side with her dog Duke. And we talked about therapy, eating disorders, being a woman in the world, social media, body image, work, food. We covered it all. And I loved this conversation a lot. We were very cozy and kind of sleepy, both of us. And I like the result of it. And I think you will too. Give it a listen. Stick around till the end. This week's episode is brought to you in part by our Patreon page. If you don't know about Patreon, it's this cool platform that allows you to help fund projects, creative projects that you like, that you find value from, and you can help the creators make more of them. And that's what the Patreon does. We have set up our Patreon in a really cool way where you'll get special bonuses for being part of the Patreon community. So every month I put out a topic for us to discuss. Last month it was indecision, and we have some journaling prompts that go around with that. It's mostly what I'm toying with and what I am thinking about and pondering. And there's that. You'll also get live, well, they're not always live, but special bonus content that's just for the Patreon. So for instance, I did a podcast event with the Almost 30 podcast it was in LA. I'm trying to think of the month. It was in March. And I also did something with Holisticism, and I did something with Splendid Spoon recently. And those all will appear, the recordings of them, in the Patreon community, as well as, you can donate at different levels, and there's different things that you'll get, different bonuses. Just check it out when you have a free second, if that's for you. If you don't want to support the podcast financially, totally cool. You can just support it by listening. That's great too. Or sharing it with a friend, leaving a review on iTunes. Don't even worry about the Patreon if it's not for you. But if you are getting value from it, it's a great way to support the podcast other than just the sponsors. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I will talk to you at the end. Thank you for listening to me talk about Patreon. We also have the listener Facebook group, which is a secret Facebook group that I love, and anybody can join it. We ask for a suggested donation of $1 a month. That's $12 a year. But if that's not for you and you don't want to do that, secret, we'll let you in anyway. We just say that because it would be really nice, and I want to cover the costs of putting out a podcast, from editing it to hosting it, and Patreon allows me to do that. Okay, I love you guys. Here's my conversation with Claire. Talk to you at the end. Bye. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FreshBooks.com. You know FreshBooks. You love FreshBooks. If you've been listening for a while, you know that I use FreshBooks. I love it. It's the easy-to-use online cloud accounting software. You can personalize the colors, and you can even add your logo. It's great for sending invoices. It really makes you look buttoned up, and it's great for tax season. You can even set up FreshBooks to import expenses directly from your bank account. So whenever you purchase something for your business, it instantly uploads it to FreshBooks. FreshBooks. I love it, and FreshBooks is ridiculously easy to set up. It's made for people who don't like dealing with numbers and their taxes. Right now, FreshBooks is offering a free 30-day unrestricted trial to our listeners. So to claim it, just go to freshbooks.com/letitout and enter "let it out" in the "How did you hear about us" section. That's freshbooks.com/letitout and enter "let it out" in the "How did you hear about us" section. Thank you, FreshBooks. Let's start at the beginning. Where did you grow up? What were you like as a kid?
Okay, that's a fun question. I grew up in Jackson, Mississippi, of all places. Yeah, it's super interesting now, especially given the political climate of the country. But yes, I grew up in the South until I went to school at Vassar. So that's how I moved to New York, when I decided to go to college. But as a kid, I was like super independent, like very much doing my own thing. I was into the arts. I was very much interested in the world outside of Mississippi in a way, and I'm like what you would call like a seeker. Like when I'm interested in something, I seek more out about it. Like if I'd read an article, and like I was obsessed with magazines, by the way. I like read all the magazines and would look up like what brands the clothes were, who, you know, what. I just was obsessed with like this world outside of the South. So I would just search out the things I was interested in. You know, and then I was like, that's a super young kid. And I guess as I got older, I started yoga when I was like 15 or 16. I was a vegetarian by the time I was like 10. I was just a very unique kid in the South.
So how did you discover yoga so young?
I feel like my aunt mentioned it one time from San Francisco, but I would go to Books A Million, which I feel like they're not even existing anymore. But I would go to the bookstore and just read books. Like I'm such a nerd. I mean, you're in my place now. I have a bit of a book problem.
Books. It's amazing.
Yeah, a lot of books. That's what I was into. So I would just read all these books, and I guess I stumbled upon like yoga books at one point.
Yeah.
And so I started doing yoga in my bedroom, and then eventually went to classes at the local gym next to the racquetball court, so the balls would hit the wall.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how it all started.
What did you want to be when you grew up as a kid?
As a kid, I think I didn't really have a career set out. I think the only thing I wanted to be like was like a woman, like with a capital W.
Yeah,
like
totally.
A woman who like ran her shit.
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, like boss bitch before that was a term. You know, it wasn't a term in 1998, but I just wanted to be like very much like on this elevated place of womanhood in a way, and just I wanted to be smart. I think these are the things that mattered to me. And as I got into high school, I wanted to be a writer, like a writer. And of course, when I was in school, I graduated in like 2008, 2009 from college. Mm-hmm. So that's when, not to say that's when it happened, but I was in college thinking I'm going to be a writer. Then it turns into, hey, this thing called blogging is happening, where this whole print media world, this whole editor world is changing. Journalism is changing. Of course, that all happened. iPads come out. Like, all these things started happening. Of course, there was the whole, like, job market changed a great deal when I graduated. Yeah. The economy changed. And so this idea of, like, wanting to be a writer that I had thought about being when I was, 12 years old had changed.
Yeah.
So I think that's what I thought I wanted to do in a way.
Yeah.
But then me being me means I don't really like the status quo, and I just always thought you don't have to be the status quo. Like, you don't have to do typical stuff. I don't have to do this. I don't have to have a 9-to-5 I hate. I don't have to hate Mondays. I don't have to hate my boss. Like, those very cliche storylines that we're told in life. I just believed it wasn't how it had to be. So on some level, I've taken a bunch of like really wild risks that I've lived like a crazy, amazing life, I think. But at the same time, it is not without its like struggle and hardship.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay, so you went to Vassar, like you mentioned,
I did.
And you studied psychology. How did you choose coming to New York and going to school there, and what was college like for you?
Well, I didn't pick any schools in the South except for Tulane and New Orleans. And at the last minute, I was like, I can't go here because it's too close to my family. I just wanted to be near New York. I wanted to be away, and I wanted to be near a major city. And so last minute, I said, this is an incredible opportunity. Vassar's a very good school. So that checked off the be smart and intelligent box for growing up. And I said, I'm going to go. Got a one-way plane ticket, and that's been it.
Did you always want to move to New York when you were a kid?
I came as a kid because I talked to my dad about Broadway shows or something, like such a goofy kid. Like, there's this thing called Broadway. Don't know if you've heard about it, Dad, but he brought me to a show for, like, you know what? She wants to see this. She needs to see the world.
What did you see?
I think I saw, oh my God, this is so shameful. I think I saw Cats.
Okay.
Did you know Cats gets, like, just, people shit on Cats, man. Anyway, I liked it. So all the dorks out there, we can unite, okay? So my dad brought me, and I remember thinking, I'm going to live here one day. I'm going to live here one day.
Yeah, I had a super similar experience.
Yeah. And I was probably 8 or 10.
Yeah.
Like, I was young.
Yeah, I was like the exact same age.
Said, I'm going to live here one day. Had no idea how or why. But that's been a lot of my life, like, in terms of, like, synchronicity and awe, kind of. Like, I would put these crazy things in my journals as a kid. I've journaled since I was 10, by the way.
Oh, my gosh.
You were, like, misjournaling. We'll talk about this. No, my life is in books. So I, like, would write these wild things in my journal about, I'm going to move to New York. Yeah. No idea how this would ever manifest, but lo and behold, here I am.
Yeah.
You know, right?
Yeah. So is your family mostly from the South and stays in the South?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still the case.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do they come visit you a lot?
Not a lot.
Yeah. No. Do you go back to visit them?
Not a lot.
Yeah.
We meet up in other places usually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still close with your family?
As close as we can be.
Yeah.
You know, distance is a thing.
Yeah.
You know, there's different types of distance. I mean, well, we can talk about long distance relationships if you want to.
Yeah.
But distance is, you know, there's physical distance, emotional distance, like spiritual distance, intellectual distance, and there's different ways to, like, help each of those. Yeah, and there's different ways to help all those sections, but if you don't have one, you have to rely on the others.
Yeah.
Like, so we can't drive by each other's house.
Right.
But we could have longer calls. We could watch the same movies. We could, you know, just we try. So as close as we can be.
Yeah. So you decide you want to live in New York. You find yourself in New York relatively young, super young, in college. Where is Vassar? I don't know.
Vassar's in Poughkeepsie.
Okay.
It is
that upstate?
2 hours.
Okay.
I call it upstate. People that live upstate don't call it upstate.
Yeah, it's not in the city, though.
Yeah, it's 2 hours north of the city, so it's technically in the Hudson Valley. So I was at school for, 4 years, moved to Brooklyn, was working, was still going back and forth because, like, I love upstate. And at the time, I was in food writing, so there's a lovely local food scene there. Cool. So I was at farms and all this kind of stuff up there at the time. I was living in Brooklyn. After a year and a half, moved back to the Hudson Valley, and this time I lived on a farm. And I lived on a farm for 2.5 years. Cool. Yeah, and then after that I was coming back and forth. Like, I was coming to New York, so I was going back and forth, and the commuting just got to be too much. And I had one of those, you know, life, just, you can't make this stuff up weeks where I think I lost 2 jobs. I didn't get into grad school. And like so many things happened. And basically my to-do list was like buy toothpaste. Yeah. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and move to the city because there's going to be more opportunity and it's going to make more sense.
Yeah. Where did you move?
Here. Oh, I've been in this apartment ever since. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you graduate from Vassar, you study psychology, you're working in food writing?
Yeah, and pastry and baking.
Wow. So how did you make that shift from you thought you wanted to work in psychology and then you're working in food?
Well, I wanted to work in food. I did psychology in college because it was easy. I've been through so much therapy in my life that psychology came kind of like a second nature. Like, I was, like I said, I'm a seeker. Like, I'd go to therapy and she'd talk about a book. I'd go read the book. I'm just really hungry for knowledge in that sense. Yeah. And I liked having words for life and for people. And I'm fascinated with the human experience. So even when I was in food, I preferred baking and pastry for sure, but I was studying a lot of like food psychology. I'm really interested in how we form our identity around what we will and won't eat and what we do eat and what we don't eat. Yeah. Fascinated by, you know, how that all works out. Then I've got books for you. I've got so much material I can give you.
Amazing.
So I was most interested in that, but I primarily just wanted to be in food and food writing. And
so what were you doing? So then you came here and you were like a food journalist?
I was freelancing, writing wherever I could write, editing wherever I could edit. I was doing research and development for some places. Yeah.
Where did you make the shift of, where do you think you came up with that fascination of people's relationships to food? Were you in therapy from a really young age? How did you get into therapy?
I got into therapy because I told my dad I was sad one time. and my dad, I mean, bless him, and thankfully this was a wonderful thing that there's not a stigma and stereotype around therapy and help in our family.
That's great.
Yeah, which I realized that is not the case for most people. So that was it. I think I suffered probably from depression as a kid, like depression and anxiety that just I didn't have words for.
Yeah. You know? So you started going to therapy like as a child?
Yeah, like 8 or 10. 8, 9, 10. Yeah, I was really young.
Wow, that's so great. And you connected with your therapist and they were...
Well, first one, no, not at all. Because when I finally got down to like... So I ended up having a really bad eating disorder in high school and got sent to inpatient treatment and all this stuff. But when I really got down to it, I was probably between, 8, 9, 10 years old and finally broke down and said, I really just don't like my body. I don't like it. And this therapist I had at the time
8, 9, or 10.
Yeah. And which is like, there's another issue under that. Eating disorders are never about your body. They're never about food. They're about the other issues. So I guess I didn't feel like I had any sort of like agency or autonomy as like a child in my family. I didn't have control of things. Like it's like parents' relationships or lack thereof and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it was going to eventually manifest it, of course, through eating disorders and body stuff. But I remember telling this therapist that at the time when I was so young, and he basically said, oh, no, that's not problem. That's not your issue. You're fine. And I remember feeling so not validated. And I told my mother, I'm never going back. Because these are the small little things that like children pick up on, So in my future work as a therapist myself, these are things where it's like you have to validate people's experiences, even if they're young, even if they're children. Yeah. So that was the first of many. I mean, I had a ton of therapists over the years, and I finally in high school found a lady who I just loved and worked with her for probably 6 years, 6 or 7. I mean, even when I was still in college.
So can we talk about your eating disorder?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
So that was something that started in high school for you, and then you went into treatment, and then my story mirrors this as well. But I was a bit older. I was at the end of college. So how has that played out in your life as something that you experienced so young? And then I know recovery isn't like for me at least, and for a lot of people, isn't like a one-time situation. It's something that's kind of with you through your life. Has that been your experience?
Not really. That's the thing. Like, I deal with more of the physical. Like, this is the thing I don't think people talk about with eating disorders. The damage that can be done it will like affect you. Like I stunted my growth. Like my heart was not beating correctly. Like I was basically about to die. Like I would go to sleep and didn't know if I was gonna wake up. Like I was less than half of what I weigh now at this height. Like you can see I'm not like there's not much to go some places, but it was bad. I was like really close to death. Had I not gone to this, like had my dad not picked me up and said, "You have to go. We have to go." Yeah. So after that, it all had to do with depression and anxiety and control for me. Yeah. And once I didn't have. Like, once I had more of a plan to stick to, I had tried to develop a wellness plan before I got shipped off. I had decided I need a wellness plan. I'm not healthy. I'm not well.
So you could see it.
Yeah. I'm not faring well for myself here. Right. And the adults in my life can't give me the guidance or the help I need, which, no shade to my family members. It's just, they didn't, I don't know, they didn't see it or they didn't know how to help in a way. So I'd created this, like, wellness plan. Didn't really work out. And obviously I got shipped off. And then when I came back, like 50-something days later, I had like structure. Like I had a plan and I was monitored by a bunch of people, but I had more tools to like help myself. So since then I haven't had any, like, I don't have any weird controlling thoughts about food or body or any of that stuff, which is a blessing.
So
but
treatment really worked for you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because I think the biggest thing is, and I try to tell people this, it's what's going on below. Like it's the deeper stuff. Yeah. There was 1 year in college when I was a freshman when I got like really bingey in a way. Like I'd get anxious and stressed out and I would just eat and eat and eat. And then that kind of dissipated as well. Like once the first semester ended, like, and I found some sense of normalcy, the rest of it goes away. And I mean, that's like such a nuanced answer. And it's like, well, great, Claire, you didn't help us at all. But really, it goes a lot to say about like when you're focusing so heavily on like your food or your body, that's not the answer. Like my therapist who helped the most, she never mentioned food or body one time. She never mentioned my weight. She never mentioned habits, you know, because they all want to know, like, what are you doing and all this kind of stuff. She never talked about it. She talked about my family. She talked about how I felt about my place in the world.
Yeah.
And that's, like, you know, one day I just woke up and was like, this isn't a problem anymore. Don't know how this happened, but it's not.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so impressive and inspiring and really cool. So we always talk about body image because my history and just the world that we live in. What about, we talked about, you know, the food and the behaviors and how that hasn't really relapsed, but what about body image and being, you know, you're a public person, you work in wellness and fitness. Have you ever struggled with body image? To me, you're this beautiful, confident person, but do you ever have moments?
Honestly, I mean, I want to say no, but that sounds like such an egotistical answer to some extent. I just
and if
don't.
No, like how?
Yeah, I just don't give a fuck. Yeah. And that is like, I think that if I learned anything from when I had an eating disorder, right, was I spent so much time consumed with my body and what I was going to eat and what I wasn't going to eat and how these shorts looked or how that shirt didn't look or how this muscle went on this arm or how that leg muscle looked. And I wasted so much of my time. And I think, like, even when I was in treatment, I was kind of given the space to just exhale. Like, I don't have to worry about any of this shit anymore. Like, I have 3 little outfits. That's all I have to wear here because I didn't pack for a whole 50 days of treatment. I packed for a weekend. Get that? Yeah. My family had to ship me clothes. I didn't have anything. I was like, I have nothing to worry about. And when I didn't have worries and I didn't have stress, I was like, it just doesn't matter. And I think how much of life gets wasted. Because, I mean, this is actually, I'm working on this book right now, and a lot of it is about self-worth and self-esteem and self-efficacy and all these kind of things. And it's like, I don't have time to care about all that. My life is going to pass me by. And, you know, the beach doesn't care if I like my thighs or not. Like, it's just going to pass us by, and we're going to lose out on so much joy and so much experience that we're not promised in a way. Yeah. Thinking about really, or being consumed, actually, because I also am writing a lot about the positives and negatives of social media, but consumed with our physical appearance, what we look like, what our bodies look like, and it's also so fleeting in a way. Yeah. You know?
It's so inspiring to hear you in this space where you're just like, this is me, this is how my body looks, and I have more important things to consume myself with and use my time for. And that has been my experience of, like, when I thought about how much of my energy I was putting in just my mental bandwidth to thinking about these things, I was like, I could be the president, or I could write 12 books, and I could do so much more than I'm doing. And that made me really sad. And I what I always say now is I wanted to make my life as a whole really great, not just my body. Yeah. But I do have days, like, outside of just, like, physical appearance, when you're just not feeling yourself, or you're just not feeling good, or you're feeling just out of it or off. Like, how do you come back? Like, what are your tools for getting back to feeling like yourself? Or, like, what are kind of your rituals if you ever have, like, an off day?
That's an interesting question about the whole, I'm coming off of some health stuff that caused a bunch of inflammation. And so, like, it's not to say I look bad, but, like, you don't look your best because you're like, my body is physically reacting to.
First of all, you look amazing, but this is an audio presentation. But.
No, but, like, you're like, oh, I just look like, your face will show signs of inflammation. Purple circles under your eyes, which is also, like, if you have a food intolerance or something, like, your body shows these kind of things. So I'm like, you know what? It's just part of the process. It's the same way, like, you were mentioning earlier about this whole, like, how do I handle body image being in a public space now, which is really interesting because on some levels I'm known for my body in weird ways. Like, there's a very physical part to some of what I do. Like, it is yoga that was built on a lot of images around yoga, and that I'm not, like, a super small yoga person, which is the stigma and the stereotype around it. But the thing is, like, people feel the right to comment on your body all the time, whether my weight is up or my weight is down. I just look at it as all part of the process. Yeah. Like, I know where I'm most comfortable and where I like things, which I don't think that that's vain or awful. I think we're allowed to go I like more muscles, or I like less muscles. I like more weight. I like less weight. You're allowed to determine what feels and looks the best to you. It's your journey. This is your sporting model to go through life with. So you can be how you like. So I just kind of have this so maybe I'm having a good day, maybe I'm having a bad day, but it's all part of the journey. And we can always get back to where we want to be. It's like one day it's off. Okay, well, maybe the next day or the next day it will be back to a place where it feels good. And even the days it feels really good, inevitably there will be a day where you don't feel so good, coming up. It's almost like this just radical acceptance of the good and the bad that exist within life and within bodies,
Yeah. You mentioned at some point that you had what you said were controversial opinions about body image or body positivity.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that?
Oh, yeah, sure. We'll talk about it. So when I first got into all of this social media kind of stuff, right? Body positivity movement.
Yeah. How did you get into
Back in 2013, I started posting pictures of yoga and just kind of went viral, and it blew up after that. Yeah.
And so at that time, what were you doing career-wise?
I was training at that point. I was doing personal training.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd walked out of
yoga?
Yeah, I was teaching yoga as well. I'd walked out of my journalism job maybe a year before that and thought, I'll give myself a mental break. I've got certifications. I'll just do this other thing. And it kind of blew up from there.
And so you're just posting on Instagram. Were you blogging too back
then? No, none of it, just Instagram.
And it just blew up to the point where now that's your full-time thing, and now
There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yeah.
Now, for sure, the last 2 years has been way more than just that, but it was, a big catalyst for it, for sure. And that was back in, the original days. I was on the first wave of, yoga, social media, and fitfluencers, the first wave before the algorithms changed, before it became the crazy world of brands and promotions and ads and things it is now.
Yeah.
It was a very different landscape then.
Yeah.
But
so interesting.
Body positivity.
Yeah.
I've always been asked because so I was saying yoga is a certain look. It's a certain body type. There's this idea of what and who does yoga, right? It looks a certain way. And I'm not like that at all. I'm quite unconventional for this space. And I think that was something that was really refreshing for people to see. And maybe a little how is that big girl so flexible? And I'm that's not revolutionary, guys. It's just not. But that was a big part of it. So I've always been asked about body image and body positivity. And I just am well, I just have a body that I occupy, that I enjoy, and that I'm not afraid to show the world.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean I show it in explicit, open ways, because that's one of my big qualms with body positivity movement is it's almost they're still valuing women's bodies over women in a way, even mainstream campaigns.
Yeah.
You can't have a body positivity campaign unless they're naked. I say that like such a Southern person. Unless they're nude, half nude, in their underwear. It's almost as if me just showing up and doing... I thought if I just showed up and did yoga, that was confident enough. That I'm willing to put my practice on a public forum. Why do I not have to have clothes on to signify confidence? It just seems really blurry because I actually don't know if that's as empowering as we think it is in this space. So I have some qualms with it in that sense.
Yeah, that makes sense, and it's such a complicated thing.
It really is, and I've written there. I have we can post my blog in the notes or something, but I've written essays, probably 4 at this point, that are about women, body, empowerment. What's really going on? I've got questions, and I've got things that are at least I did, that were conflicting thoughts and opinions, and does this make me feel empowered? Does it not? Why, if one person does it, is it confident? And if someone else does it, she's a slut. Where's the line? I would get so tangled up.
Yeah.
And so I've had to kind of really flesh out, what's appropriate for me, what matters to me, and, do kind of the deeper dive internally, instead of just looking at outwardly what's presented to us that we're supposed to consume as confident and validated and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's such an interesting, complicated thing because we, as women, there are standards of beauty that exist, and standards of beauty have existed for millennia, which is fine, but it's only relatively recently that standards of beauty have included thinness as an ideal, and that is damaging, like it has been for both of us, physically, mentally as well. And it's pervasive because all day long in the media, it's telling us that one body shape is the ideal by showing us. It's changing now, thank goodness, and work like what you're doing and what so many people are doing are helping with that. But I think, especially for young people like ourselves, we were shown that to be happy, to be successful, to be famous, to live in New York, to have these things that we thought we wanted for whatever reason. And like the standard of beauty includes whatever is most difficult to attain and costs the most money and resources to attain. So it's such a complicated thing that we decide that this one shape is beautiful and then we want to attain it when that might not be how our body's meant to be. And it seems like you've gotten to a point where you are in such great acceptance with who you are, but there's also this like push-pull and just life with people wanting to be different than what they are. How do you, I guess this isn't really a question, I just want to talk about this, I guess. It's like, do you see the standards of beauty shifting? I'm not really being like articulate about it, but it's such an interesting thing to...
About it shifting?
Yeah, or I guess like, I don't know, just kind of what are your thoughts on the current standards of beauty and about how we, I don't know, I guess just how people interact with like this whole body positivity movement that's like telling us this type of body is okay that you haven't really seen as much before, when it's like, it almost makes it worse for them to tell me that that's okay. Like, it was always okay. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
and I mean, it also has become like, of course, anything that gets put on social media, no matter how innocent it is at the beginning, can somehow get bastardized along the way. Yeah. So it was, I think body positivity was for people who had very marginalized bodies, who had not been shown, you know, in spaces and had been told, not only because we love to as a society put moral bounds on things, so it's not so much that thin was good but fat was bad, and if you're then you're bad if you have something that's not quote unquote desirable in mainstream. And so I think body positivity originally was a space where people could say, I'm still positive about my body, even if it doesn't fit into what you like, or what media likes, or what mainstream advertising likes, or what is shown to us as good, you know? And it has now, even on social media, been taken back by like anybody who has a little role when they sit down, or, you know? So it's actually been almost taken away from the people who might need it the most, in a sense. And there's also a very like, even within like, body positivity or plus size modeling is a great example. There's still an acceptable body within that. Right. Yeah, there's a certain shape where it's like you're acceptably big, but if you're this shape, you're not. Like, like you have to be curvy because that's attractive. But if you're not, then you're just big. And that's like, those are terrible like messages to feed people. And so my biggest thing, so I was saying like back 2-3 years ago, and this really kind of got moving and I got pushed into the body positivity space. I had some people I was working with at the time, and they said, why don't we do like a big body positive campaign? Like we'll start like a hashtag and all this stuff. And I said, it's so hard for me because I don't like the obsession. And you're someone who's had an eating disorder, you understand it. Obsession is what you have to get away from. And so even if you're thinking about your body from the other side of it, you're still obsessed with your physical body. You're still obsessed with your physical appearance. Like, the obsession is what really bothers me, and where like my heart just breaks, that like even people that are in, you know, very prolific body positivity people, every picture's of their body on social media, and it's I mean, maybe that's how it's supposed to be, but for me it just feels like an obsession, because it's like you still can't, because I mean that makes it difficult too, because social media is a visual platform. So when we were trying to do this whole hashtag thing probably back in 2015, I was stuck because I thought, how do I visually represent and show not obsessing? I got so hung up on this. I mean, you guys can go and read the stuff I wrote. I was just like, how do I tell people it's not about the obsession, you know? Yeah. How do you love your body without, like, and you can show it, but be careful how you show it, because it gets really misconstrued sometimes. It's just, how did you like come to some resolve for that? What did you end up doing? it fell really flat. Like, I ended up not doing, like, anything with it. Yeah. It was, like, this hashtag that just, like, never really went anywhere.
Yeah.
I wrote some pieces on the blogs about it and was still just working through it and was like, you know what, when I really kind of figure this all out is when I'll move forward with it. But I got to a place where I was like, you know what, I'm not going to fall into this. Like, I had a photo shoot one time, right? Not too long ago, maybe in the last year. And I was part of this group that they were honoring people, like, making progress, like, in their spaces. And I thought, how nice. I feel to be admired for something that's not my body, right? Like, that feels really good. And I got to the shoot and blah, blah, blah. I have, like, a button up or a button down. I don't know what they're called. Is it up or down?
Button, I don't know.
Well, it was a shirt that has a collar.
Interchangeably.
And some buttons.
Yeah.
I was covered up is the term. I had on, like, regular pants, like slacks of some sort, or stretchy joggers or something, and, like, sneakers. Take these little pictures. And they said, you know, we really want to push the whole, like, you know, how confident you are in your body. And I said, okay. And they said, so on a scale of, like, 1 to nude, like, how nude will you get? And I was like, I'm not taking anything off. But I realized that, like, there is this association between, to showcase body positivity, you also have to have, like, skin. You have to have no clothes on.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not what body positivity is, though. Body positivity, in my mind, is, like, you know, like, being naked in front of your... I say that like any KKID, by the way. It's being, like, nude in front of, like, your lover, like, you know, doing things with the lights on, like going to the beach and not stressing about what swimsuit you did or didn't bring, or, you know, just finding something that you're comfortable in, you can move in, that the parts you don't want to pop out aren't popping out, and you go and enjoy your trip. You don't think too terribly much about it. You don't, you know, stress about, do I have to have a cover up to go get a drink at the bar at the beach or something. Like, body positivity just means showing up. It means going to yoga and not trying to hide because you're afraid people are looking at your body. It means being able to just walk around or go to a store and shop and buy whatever size fits.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if it's a 2, a 22, or just whatever piece of clothing fits. Just pick 4 sizes that may fit you and put on the one that feels good, that you feel good in, because nothing makes us more aware of our body than ill-fitting clothes, by the way.
Yeah.
Just, they'll send your head into a whole other place. Because I remember with the eating disorder days, like, if things didn't fit away, I would think I looked away I didn't, which leads to, like, body dysmorphic disorder and all this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what body confidence means to me. Like, it means showing up and just saying, this is me and I'm going to enjoy it every day. And, like, not making apologies for our bodies. We love to say, oh, I'm sorry I look so tired today. I'm sorry I, like, really am a mess. Like, I'm sorry I put on some weight. No, you don't have to be sorry.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
So that's what I'm trying to push, and it is so hard to visually represent that on the internet. So I'm trying.
Well, you're doing a great job.
My best.
Can we talk a bit about being a influencer?
Yeah.
I don't know why I put quotes. You're, like, totally that, but I'm unclear of, like, what an influencer. Yeah, what it means. Like, what does it mean to you? How do you balance your relationship with social media and your phone and just, like, technology in general with also it being your job or part of your job?
It very much is, and I have, like, rebelled against it for so long, and I'm in it, and I still rebel against it. I can't stand the term influencer. It's accurate, I won't lie, but it's like, people now, like, I'm listening to young people, like, they want to do this for a living. Like, it's a job title now. I never looked at it like that, you know? Like, this was not my goal. I didn't plan on getting... It didn't exist. Yeah. I didn't plan on getting a big following. Like, it just happened. It's like, so I can't tell people how to grow your following. I don't know. I really don't. Yeah. And I've taken a massive hit because I did change what I was posting, because I said I'm not going to post cheap pictures of my body anymore because they get likes. They're easy. As women, we all know, like... There's certain stuff you can post and it gets all the attention. And I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. So I took a hit in quantity to rise in quality.
Amazing.
Yeah, so it happens. It's just like, it's a steeper road, but it's the road I'd rather take because I can look myself in the mirror, you know, in the mornings. But about being in the space of being an influencer, I feel that I now have a social responsibility to my audience. Like, now that I was given a platform and so many, you know, eyes on what I do, that I have a responsibility to be something of substance in an otherwise very vapid and void space.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to be impactful with what I do, to put out content I'm proud of, to get the messages that I know people need, or at least the things I needed when I was younger, to get those messages out. And maybe we lose some people along the way, but that is fine. I would much rather be something of like quality. No pun intended with my Instagram handle. But I would rather be something that I can like stand behind, not just like, I mean, for the most part, social media is like a glorified popularity contest, right?
Totally.
And you realize there's not much substance behind a lot of these things. And it's people that just, I always ask myself before I post things or before I get involved with campaigns or brands, etc., does this serve the work? And the work is basically whatever is in your heart, your purpose, your passion, what you want to do, what you feel is valuable. Does this serve the work, or does it serve ego? Does it serve celebrity? Does it serve fame? Does it serve a very small self-esteem? Does it serve like insecurities? Does it serve a place of like competitiveness and needing outward validation? And like, you've got to ask yourself these questions if you're in a space like I am, and then if you're a consumer of it on the other side. I always tell my followers, like, be skeptical. Be skeptical of what you see. Like, be skeptical of what they're putting out there. It is but one layer, to a lot of things. And only consume things that you can trust, or you can, even question sometimes. Like, even if someone's got a ton of great content, like, and there's a few things you don't agree with, it's okay, because it triggers, you thinking more about other things. It makes us more thinking. And then when we think more, we're more aware. We're better people overall. But yeah, that's kind of how the influencer space feels to me. And for the most part, the people who are really like tastemakers and like culture shaping, like just dope people, they don't call themselves influencers.
Yeah.
Like people that are like the trendsetters and the tastemakers are not the ones saying they are. Like they move in silence.
Yeah.
And you have to continually evolve. Because that's where even I am. Is like I'm constantly evolving, because like there's brands that watch, there's other influencers that watch, and it's like I didn't come up in this space not to say behind other people, because I did get into this so early. It's always been on like a space of evolving, and you have to keep evolving. It's not about just doing the same stuff over and over and over. At least not for me.
Yeah. So. Yeah, okay. First of all, you are the real deal. Like, you are so... I'm just so happy that you're so great. Not that I, like, didn't think that you would be, but you're, like... I thought you were going to be great, and you're, like, exceeding my expectations.
Yeah, make me blush.
You are so smart and articulate, and, yeah. No, I'm, like, having a great time. Just an intermission to say that. So... On your blog, you do have a blog now, and it is fantastic. I binged on it today. And you wrote this essay on your site about sustainable self-love, and I especially loved that. And I wrote down this line where you said, admitting how we are just as we are, not hiding our shadow selves away, gives us a newfound freedom to accept ourselves. Full, whole people also have bad days and bad qualities. I loved that in particular so much, and people should read that in its entirety. But can you talk about sustainable self-love and where you are with that today?
Yeah, sustainable self-love is one of my favorite kind of topics, because like I said, I'm skeptical. Like, I'm always skeptical of the stuff I see on the internet. And right now, because I'm doing research for this book, hashtag self-love and hashtag self-care and all these kind of things are huge. Self-love is massive right now.
Yeah.
But are we really doing it in a way that's sustainable? Like, do people even know what self-love is? Like, past just being like, huh? And so I get this question sometimes. It's like, how am I going to love me if I don't even really like me? And it's true, because I think a lot of times we associate self-love just with like physical appearance, like our bodies. But it also goes as deep as to like the decisions we make and the mistakes we make. Like, it's really hard. Like, if you go into work one day and you fucked up your presentation and your boss is on you, it's hard to like yourself, because you're like, I'm a screw up. Like, I make mistakes. Or say you did something, you make your partner, you hurt your partner, you hurt someone you love. Like, we do things as humans that we're not always so proud of.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
We sometimes make a decision where we're like, oh, I should not have done A, B, or C. And so we start to feel bad about ourselves. So self-esteem is not just liking our bodies and being confident in our physical appearance. It's also about how do we feel about who we are on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think as whole people, like to be a whole functioning person, like to be a human means that we have all this stuff inside of us. Like we have the ability to make mistakes, and we will inevitably. We will frustrate, hurt, and anger like the people we love the most without fail, and they will do the same to us. You know, we will make decisions we don't really like sometimes. You know, we'll feel pressured into something. We'll feel like we don't have options. We'll feel like we'll live with our head in the sand, but not even know sometimes. Like we're human. So for many good things we can do is just as many bad things we can do. And so I think to fully embody like this human experience, and it's the same thing with the physical stuff, like our body shape and how that ebbs and flows. Like maybe it's up, maybe it's down. You have to accept that all of that exists within you. And just say, you know what, like know yourself. And knowing yourself says there's a bunch of, you know, conflicting stuff that goes on all inside of me. And maybe I'm even hypocritical sometimes, you know, because it's just part of who we are. And I think that that's a much more sustainable way to look at self-love is to go, you know what, I love me. Even though I'm still working on parts of me, you know, even though like I made a mistake, but I can do better tomorrow. Or, you know, I didn't know that, but now I do, so I can go learn more. Or I hurt this person, but I can love this person again as well. Like we have a new day and we have a new moment, and we can always shift and change how we feel about that. So I think self-love is like this thing that just encases us no matter what we're doing. And I don't want to use that as like an excuse for bad behavior, you know, just like, well, I'm an asshole, just can't help it. No, I wouldn't look at it that way for like your listeners, but I would look at it as a sense of like loving the whole experience and all the parts that make you you. And even looking at maybe some of those things that we think are negatives in a more positive light. Like I always talk to my boyfriend about this whole like spectrum of things. Like on the one side, a girl may say, oh, I'm really like clingy and needy, but it could also be like, maybe you're just really devoted. Yeah. Like, you know, and how can you spin these in a more positive light? Like, you know, so I think that we can look at those things. Like maybe you got really upset about something and you're like, oh man, well, maybe you're just also really passionate. And how can you channel that positively? Like if you make a mistake at work, maybe it's because you were rushing. So think about, well, okay, well, I was rushing because I'm trying to do too much. I'm an overachiever. I'm trying to achieve too much. How can you manage that in like a really human, kind way? You know, because you got to be kind to yourself to love yourself. Right. Or part of loving yourself is being kind to yourself.
Yeah. And doing, because I've so been there before where, like, I do something that makes me cringe, that I'm embarrassed of, or I feel sad about, and then instead of just being like, oh, well, you just did your old thing again, that's okay, now let's choose again, now let's improve, I'll spiral. Yeah. And I'll just be like, well, you're so terrible, you're so awful, you're so stupid, your body, and then it's just this whole thing where if that was just one thing, I could have just shifted. Like, yeah, that was bad, but, like, tomorrow's a new day, or I can, this happens a lot. Yeah. I think in relationships, like I see this from me with my boyfriend.
So
of like,
true.
I'll do something that I'm embarrassed about, and he's like, okay, yeah, that sucked, but like it's fine. And I'm not able to move on, not because he can't, but because I'm still beating myself up. And that was just such a great shift of like, I think that is actual self-love, is being okay when you mess up and not letting yourself spiral.
Yeah, because it's sustainable. Because something sustainable means that it's like accepting how life is. And life is not always perfect, great decisions, body positivity on 1,000. Yeah. Like, that's not always the case. So a sustainable view of like longevity in the world of quote unquote self-love, in my opinion, means accepting all the parts of it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God. Okay, this is so great. I could talk to you forever. So you recently wrote about not being positive all the time and that being okay, which we're kind of talking about right now. But could you talk about that and why positive thinking all the time isn't the most realistic or sustainable approach, especially in the space that you're in? Yeah,
I mean, well, first off, because I'm in wellness. Right. One time I got told I was too dark for wellness and for yoga. I guess it's because like I don't smile a lot in pictures. Like I smile a lot as in life, but it feels disingenuous sometimes. Like especially in selfies. Like who are you smiling at? Just the camera? At least I don't know. It's so strange to me. So I told her I was too dark, I guess, because they were like, oh, she seems a little depressing, and yoga's not depressing. And it's that's a whole other misconception, because, oh, man, it's just a thing. So within wellness, positive thinking is is a big thing. You know, we talk a lot about mindfulness and mentality and like mindset a lot. And there is something to be said for, you know, energy and the power of positive thinking for sure. I think affirmations, if you've been in eating disorder work, you know how this goes. Setting good intentions and having positive affirmations for yourself, they can be impactful. They can be really good in terms of reshaping self-esteem and self-image and the thoughts that we hold about ourselves. They change the talk in your head. So I don't think positivity is all bad. But I think now, because it is so front of mind, that we can almost start feeling bad for not being positive.
Yeah.
And we can get scared that, like, oh my God, I had a negative thought. My whole day is going to go to shit. Like, oh, I got to think positive. I got to think
crazy.
positive.
Yeah.
And so we get we almost make ourselves miserable by trying to be so positive all the time, because once again, it goes back to this idea of like, you might have good thoughts, you might have bad thoughts. Like, we're trying to shift them all to more good than bad, but you can't help but have things that pop up, right? Like, wouldn't it be a wonderful, ideal world if we were just in spaces of calm, peaceful serenity all day long, and nothing stressed us, no one made us mad, nothing happened that got us going that we felt was unjust or unfair, like just nothing happened, just floated through it all. I wish I could get to a place of being that enlightened, you know. But it's just like, so we can make ourselves feel bad, you know? And then that cuts us off from the human experience, because once again, the human experience has negative stuff. Like, it has grief, it has anger, it has, you know, and these things are actually, they cue us into what we're feeling, and it helps us be more aware of ourselves. Like, if you're angry, it's for a reason. If you're frustrated, there's something else going on. If you're, you know, sad about something, where is that coming from? So it helps us become more aware of who we are and how we experience the world. But if we're in a space of, I have to be super cheery, super smiley, super on 100 all the time, you want to hide those feelings, because it's like, oh man, I gotta hide this. I can't let people know I don't feel well, or I can't let people know I'm not positive right now. So that's an undue pressure. So that's how I think about that.
Well, another thing that I wanted to talk about when we were talking about social media is comparison. And I wrote it down to talk about it with fitness and wellness specifically. I think it'd be interesting for you to discuss like the obligatory nature of fitness, and of you have to do it this many times a week, or you have to work out this many times. I know you've written on that, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then also with social media, you're seeing more of people's lives than we ever have before, and we just didn't know what people were having for lunch 5 years ago. You know, we didn't know how many times a week they worked out, because we weren't looking at them all day long. So how do those two pieces kind of work together? How do you handle comparison with social media? And then maybe start with fitness and how you handle that.
Well, fitness and wellness, that whole space, and social media.
It's a lot.
I mean, first off, you were like, we just didn't see people's meals. But even now, just because we see it doesn't mean it happened. Right. Just because you posted about working out, did you really work out?
Yeah.
And then it's almost like, if you don't post, did you work out? Like, if a girl goes to the gym and doesn't post, did she actually go to the gym?
Yeah.
Like, I'm joking, but still.
I know.
I'm super laid back. Even as a trainer, I would get, a lot of my clients would be the ones who'd had like traumatic experiences with trainers, like yelling at them and telling them they were weak, or making them do certain exercises. Yeah, I know it's tough, but it's the world of fitness, right? Some people love that. They go to boot camp and get yelled at for hours. I would be like, oh no, not today. And I would just leave. Like, my stress levels can't handle it. I'm like slow and steady, and it's like, I'll get to it. I will get to those 10 reps. I'll go to a spin class
and I'll just ride. I'm like, I'm just going on a stroll.
And like I'm just here for music. Just sing along. Like,
I'm just here for the music and the riding.
Yeah, I'm just so laid back about the whole thing, because it has to do with like sustainability, and maybe that's not the most motivating, but we don't have to kill ourselves to be in shape. First off, I'll just leave that as, you know, just a takeaway for that one comment. But in terms of like the fitness space, when it gets put on social media, a lot of times we feel like it is inspiring, because it reminds us to like, oh man, I should work out some more. Like, that's a good exercise. Like, I should be healthy. I should eat some avocado.
But I feel like avocado. It more often makes me feel bad.
I was gonna say there is a caveat to that it actually makes us feel bad. There's actually studies and data that has come out about our friends' fitness post actually make us feel worse about ourselves, because we start comparing ourselves that like, well, she went to the gym 8 times and I didn't go to the gym at all. And
I have it. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just need to relate. Like, I particularly have it so bad where I'll be feeling completely fine, and then I'll see someone say, like, post-workout breakfast, and I'll be like, well, I just ate that and I didn't work out. Like, am I allowed? Like, I hate that term. It really gets me. Like, you don't have to post-walk, post-hike, post-class. Like, you can eat breakfast regardless of what it came after. Post-sleep.
Yeah,
like,
well, you know what else it does is it turns food into this, it's only, like you use the word acceptable, or am I allowed to do this? It's only acceptable in certain spaces. I have a friend in the UK who's like a fitness blogger she's hilarious, first off, but she's great, and she's really good with her visuals, and she speaks a lot about this. It'll be like, you know, like healthy breakfast, and it'll be like also healthy breakfast, and one is like all, you know, Fruit Loops and processed sugars and pancakes, and the other one is like berries and oatmeal, and she's like, they're both fine for you.
Yes,
like,
good.
healthy day of eating, healthy day of eating. Like, it's not one is better than the other, you know?
Yes.
It's like serving size, also a serving size. Like, it can be 1 tablespoon or 8 tablespoons. It depends on what you want, and like, she has a very healthy relationship with food.
That's
and
so great.
I think like a lot of young people can relate to, because she's very good visuals with what she puts out there. And I'll give you her name and stuff before I get off of this. She's super cool.
Link to it.
Yeah, but it's like this idea that we compare ourselves to like so much. I mean, I compare myself more from like a business standpoint, because I own my own business. So I'm like, who's speaking on that panel? Why didn't I get asked to do that event? Why didn't I get asked to go to this? Like, oh, I used to talk to them. Why not I working with them anymore?
Yeah.
And I had to catch myself like real quick with that, like a year or two ago, because I'm like, I can't make any progress if I keep looking at other people's shit in a way. It's not to say I don't look at it now, because I do think you need to be aware of your industry, whatever you're doing. Like, you just need to be, like, if you're a chef, you need to know about other restaurants. Like, there's about being aware about your industry, and then there's a point where, like, you can't move forward because you're so tangled up in comparison.
You need to have blinders on a bit.
Yeah, that's not healthy. So really, that's how I think it boils down to with social media. And so the fitness aspect of it and the whole food aspect of it, once again, it's like, be skeptical. Like, just know that that's not always reality. And not only is it, and maybe even if it's their reality, it doesn't have to be yours, and you're still okay. It's not a better than situation, you know. And I try to be very open with my followers about how much I do and don't work out. Like, this is my job, and I do what I can depending on my work schedule. You know, so when I'm traveling, I might not work out at all because I'm not available to do so, and I'm not stressed out about it either. You know, you get to a point where you can just maintain, and you're like, I'm happy and I'm living my life, and, you know, that's a very different mentality than it has to be 3 days a week, 5 days a week, you know, have to eat these things. The only time that really comes in is if you have a specific goal, like you have a really specific goal or something you're training for or training towards, where then, you know, like a more structured eating schedule really comes into play. You know, maybe you have like diabetes or something, and you really need to start managing what you're eating and consuming and the hours you're doing so. Then look towards a more structured plan that's like your health kind of depends on you being regimented in a way. But other than that, I think there's just a lot more freedom that we don't give ourselves because we're taught that like there's this rigidity to it that is almost like better and healthier, and it's really not. It's just more obsessed. Right?
And stressful, and stress is worse for your body than anything.
People that kill themselves in these cardio classes, you actually don't lose any fat. Well, you can lose some, but you don't lose as much as you could because your body doesn't know the difference in stress, right? So it thinks it's stressed out all the time. When if you just would relax a little bit, sleep more, you'd probably drop weight, you know? And you don't have to kill yourself.
So silly. Because I saw in one of your videos that you said that you want people to feel contentment. What does contentment mean to you today?
So contentment is kind of the more popular way to say happiness. That is, like we were talking about, like sustainable self-love and like not being positive all the time. It's like, okay, like we try to be as much as we can, but if we don't, that's okay. The best thing I think we can look for in life is to be content. To be content. It doesn't mean to be chasing this joyous happiness all the time, because happiness ultimately is contentment. No, but it's like just being content. Because there's going to be good and there's going to be bad. And so it's like if you can be content, then you just can kind of roll with the punches in a way. So that's my whole mentality.
Yeah.
Like, I just want people to be okay and not stressed out and not feel that they lack anything and not feel like they're less than or not feel like they're not good enough to do A, B, or C. Or my biggest thing is self-worth, which is what this book will be about. I just want people to feel like they're worthy. Yeah. And they're worthy to do anything they want in this world and in this life. And even though there are so many things put up in different spaces for different people and shapes and, you know, classes and all this kind of stuff, that yes, there's difficulties that we'll face, but it doesn't mean you're not worthy. Like, you're not worthy of, like, love and acceptance and belonging and all those, like, very deeply human things that we can find. Yeah. You know? Yes.
Yeah. We were talking about stress before. How do you handle stress as an entrepreneur and just a person in the world? Do you have what are your kind of self-care routines or methods for handling stress? Throughout your day, too, we always talk about morning and evening routines, maybe like the first 3 things you do when you wake up in the morning and the last few things you do before bed. How does that kind of play into your stress levels?
For me, stress... I am really bad with things in the mornings, and I get so stressed out because I'm like, I'm not going to wake up. So I just don't plan any meetings or calls before 11 a.m. or noon, and that is a luxury at this point because I work for myself. I mean, granted, I do still have brunch and breakfasts and things I have to go to sometimes, but if I just set my schedule in a way that I can manage, much less stressful. Yeah. And then things that are not in my control, because that is very much an in control situation that I can handle. Things that aren't in my control, I get renewed with, like, silence and quiet and cutting off from me. We live in New York, so it's like all the chaos is 2 steps away all the time. So it's like I can have my little haven, my oasis at home. It's quiet. It's still. That kind of stuff really helps me, like, chill out. Or I take really long showers, which is, of course, you know, all the best ideas come in a really long shower. Totally. And also showers are great because, like, unless you have a waterproof bag for your phone, which is excessive and you need to stop that. They make those? They have waterproof bags for phones, yeah. So hopefully the shower is a place where you can't have your phone. You literally cannot have it. So it's, like, such a good place to just, like, go into your own little world and, like, think about life in a way. And just there's... You know, nothing that pressing is hopefully going to happen in the time it takes you to take a shower. Totally. You know, the world could just go on for a little while, so that's really important to me.
What about in the evening? What are, like, kind of the last few things you do before you go to bed and wind down? And, like, how do you shut down being an entrepreneur when it's always going?
I know, it does. It always goes. There are times I send a lot of emails in the evenings because it's quiet. Like, I work better at night. Yeah. Because no one can bother me at night. Everybody else's day is over and they're out, like, having dinner with their friends and I'm working. But I really just, it's quiet again. Like, I just, quiet. And skincare, I find very ritual-like. Like, it's like a ritual and it's, like, cleansing and healing. And I get back to myself in a way. So I really like to, like, touch my face, kind of. Yeah. And, I just settle down that way. And then turn everything off. Like, you see, I have a pink light in here. I like just calm. Just find calm and then kind of let everything go. Yeah. Doesn't mean it always works. And then if I really am stressed out, which happens, I use, like, guided meditations on my phone and I listen to those before I go to sleep. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you have kept journals since you were 10. Yes. I wrote this book about journaling, so I always like to ask people about writing and if they ever process their emotions and feelings through writing. It's been such a good tool for me. So can you talk about that?
1,000% I have. Yeah, I've had a journal since I was 10 years old. A little spiral-bound notebook that I remember my first journal entry was because I was mad. So there'd been, like, this local model scout. I don't know if I've told anybody this. Oh my gosh. This little local model scout came to, like, Jackson, Mississippi, and these 2 girls came back to school or some party and were like, we talked to the model scout. And they were, like, trying to tell everybody, they were like, we're going to be models. And I was like, gosh. Whatever. And I remember, like, little 10-year-old me ran in her room and was like, so-and-so and so-and-so. I almost dropped their names. Jesus. Say they're going to be models. Blah, blah, blah. But guess what? Like, I was just, like, processing my feelings about it. And I'm pretty sure that's when I said, like, I'm going to move to New York and I'm going to model. And, like, that's the weirdest thing is, like, I'm the only one who's done it.
Yeah, of course.
Like, that's the craziest part. But, yeah, it's like I was just being, like, a little jealous, petty 10-year-old and needed to talk about it. And, like, I'm not going to tell my mom that because she's going to be like, that is so weird. Like, who cares? You know? Like, she's not going to understand it. And I've kept a journal ever since.
Wow. So you still do it now?
Yeah, I still journal.
Wow. What is your, like, process with it? Is it something that you do to kind of figure out, because I journal because I don't really know how I'm feeling unless I'm writing, and it helps me to process what's going on in my mind. It makes my therapy better. It makes my relationships better. How do you use it now?
Absolutely the same way. Like, I use it to process my thoughts and my feelings. I use it to do, like, a recap on life, as a space to get, like, actual perspective in a way. Like, because by writing I can go, okay, how were things 3 months ago, and I can actually kind of list it out and process it out in my head, or I can look back to how I was actually feeling. And, like, I don't often go back and read stuff, but sometimes I do, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting, so that's how that actually felt, because we can change it in our heads. So definitely for processing and just kind of, like, working through this, process of being a human and, like, being a woman. Like, there's stuff you gotta write about sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You're doing so much. Obviously, you have your own business, and you're writing a book, and you're in graduate school.
I am.
To be a therapist. So what are you most excited about? What's next for you? Are you going to see clients as a therapist? Is that your plan? Like, do you know what your...
I get asked that by the people closest to me often. It will be kind of a hybrid of what I do now combined with seeing people. I mean, I also have to think about what I'm in my early 30s now. There's going to be, like, kids in the mix at some point. And what is my life going to look like? I make a big point of keeping my private life off social media. Like, my partners, my relationship, my family, eventually my kids, my future children, right? For so much of my life being public, I really like having a private life and keeping it sacred. And I think it's something more people could really benefit from. But like you said, it's comparison, it's competition. It's like, they put their kids, I'm going to put mine too. And, like, that, there's so many reasons. I wrote another blog about this, about privacy and discretion. That, like, I'll keep it off there. So I have to look at what is my life going to look like in the next 3 to 7 years, And can that be as quiet and private as I want it to be? And, like, it's just, what is that going to look like? And so I have to think about kind of my future in a way that crazy rebellious me never really thought about it. But yeah, now I'm excited to see where it all goes. Like, I feel more on purpose now than I have in a really long time, and being able to say, these are the things I'm going to do. This is how I want to help people. This is what I want to put out. This is how I can put it out in a way that feels good to me. And to be able to have because it's like a privilege to be able to say, I can say no to jobs now. I can say no to this or no to that, or, I can shape this into something where it feels the best for what I want to do,
Yeah. It's interesting, too, you being a therapist, I know, and I don't know it, like, super well, but there's and I don't know if it's a rule or just a trend that they're not supposed to share about themselves. And is that something that will complicate your work as a therapist because you're such a public person? Yeah,
it'll be really interesting how we're gonna segue this, because I really have to I have to figure out, or determine is the word, exactly how I want to hold space within that space. Like, how this is going to look, because so much of me is out into the world. And how I'm just going to balance all of that, And it made the most sense for me. I think some people are like, well, why are you doing this? Like, you already have, like, a bustling career. And it's like, what I see on social media? Like, we don't need, especially as women, but we don't need another workout program. We don't need 6 more ways to get abs. We don't need 3 more ways to, like, have glowing hair. Like, we need to know how to really work on our self-esteem. Like, how can we really work on our self-confidence? Like, how can we really... have more self-worth. And that's the kind of stuff where, like, going into therapy, you have the tools to really help people, or going into counseling more specifically, you have more tools to really help people, whether it's giving them journal prompts or giving them, just a much more qualified space than saying, I'm a coach who, like, will tell you how to be positive.
Yeah.
You know, like, I just think there's more to it. And maybe
Band-Aid.
it's because, and because, like, I mean, you've been in therapy too, you know, all the benefits of it. Like, there's a qualification, and, like, there's a reason people go to school for this. Like, there's a reason why you have to have knowledge, you know, and research behind it. And I think that that's how to best serve the people who follow me.
Yeah.
It's not by just saying, you know what, I got some things I think help. It's like, you know what, I'm going to try to get as many tools as I can to give to all of you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. So that makes so much sense. Okay, these are going to be some quick fire questions, so just kind of say the first thing that comes to your mind.
All right.
Okay, best thing you've eaten in the last week?
The best thing... Oh, I wanted Thai food so badly yesterday and didn't get it. That would have been the best thing. Other than that, oh my God, I've been traveling so much. What was the best thing? Chick-fil-A.
All right.
I had Chick-fil-A a few days ago.
What is your favorite outfit or your go-to outfit? Like the outfit you feel you're best in? Like, what is your favorite thing that you have, like, that you put on right now?
Oversized sweaters.
I love your sweater.
I live in, like, I wear them like 8 days in a row.
Yeah,
like, it is.
me
it's
too.
a lot.
I've been wearing this for like 4 days in a row.
I won't tell anybody. It's fine.
Okay, what is your greatest lesson on creativity?
Ooh, my greatest lesson on creativity. It's not on, like, anybody else's schedule. Like, it comes really randomly.
Yeah.
And just be open to it. I think it's kind of the biggest thing on creativity. Don't try to force it, because the minute you try to force it, you lose it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So true. Greatest lesson on relationships?
On relationships. I have so many thoughts on relationships. I think you have to always be the person you want to be. So if that means being loving, being caring, being, like, I ask a bunch of questions, but it's because I care. You know, it's like I was saying earlier about reframing some of our not so positive qualities about ourselves. How can we look at them in a more positive light? But yeah, be the person you want to be. So do the things that you're like, I'm proud of how I'm acting or how I'm treating this person, or, you know, just, you have to be the person you're going to want to be. Not who you think they want you to be, not who you think society wants you to be, or society tells you is good or bad. You have to be who you want to be. Yeah. And then I think it also is a lot about, it's not so much to be kind. It's, you also, like, someone has to be generous first. And that's not always easy. I think that's a big thing for relationships. You only ask for one, but I'll probably give you 20 more if we kept going. So
I want more. We'll have to do this another time again. What is your greatest lesson on spirituality? What do you think about God? What happens when we die? The meaning of life? All of that.
I think there's something bigger than us. So I know there's something bigger than us. Maybe we call it God. Maybe we call it the universe. Maybe we call it spirit. Maybe we call it all these other things. But I think the only way you ever hear that or experience that is to be quiet and to tune in.
Yeah. Okay, this is really just a way to recommend things in these categories, but I frame it this way. You're trapped on a deserted island, and you can only bring with you one TV show, one movie, one book, one food, one podcast, or music. So what do you want to recommend in each of those categories?
Oh my God, I can only have one. Why can't I just bring a computer, and then I will have access to all of it?
You can recommend a couple in each category.
Okay.
So what
First
TV
one.
shows? What are you liking? What have you? They can be like all-time favorites or something you're like into right now and you want people to know about.
I don't watch terribly much TV, so I don't
have like a
TV
show from all time that you loved, or?
I mean, I'm the typical American right now, and I'm watching This Is Us. So that has a lot of lessons, okay, about humans and emotions. So keep that one in there.
What about movies? What are your like favorite movies of all time, or movie you saw recently?
Okay, my favorite movie of all time when I was a kid was Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but that really doesn't have many pressing life lessons. Nor will I watch it again. So it's like as an adult, I don't really watch it. So yeah, I don't have really anything.
That's okay.
Either, no.
What about book that you want people to read or know about?
God, there's so many books. I have 2 book lists on the blog as well.
Okay, maybe we should link to that.
Yeah, we can do that. There's 2 different book lists, but some of the most impactful ones for me were 7 Levels of Intimacy. It was a really good book. Yeah.
It's
kind of God-ish, but just if you're not religious, look past it, and if you are, get more into it. Same guy, Matthew Kelly, wrote The Rhythm of Life, which that was really important for me when I was a kid. The Power of Intention by Wayne Dyer was recommended to me in high school by my therapist, and I've read it probably 100 times since. So was The 7 Levels of Intimacy as well. Other books that were impactful, Think and Grow Rich was a really big one for me. And then as I got older, of course, Brene Brown's work was really interesting. And then, you can just go to the list for the rest of them. Always reading a book.
What about your favorite food?
My favorite food. I like all sorts of foods. Breakfast foods.
Favorite New York. Let's say favorite New York.
Breakfast foods.
Yeah.
It'd be breakfast foods. I would eat breakfast 24 hours a day. Are you a
sweet breakfast person or a savory?
No, I like savory.
Yeah. Podcasts. Do you listen to podcasts?
Yes, I actually listened to your podcast before we got linked together, and that is not just it is not just such a huge to honor. Say, but it's true. I really did listen to it before that. So of course you're on the listen. I only listen to like 5 podcasts.
That's the biggest honor I've ever gotten.
And I like NPR a lot.
Me too. Yeah. Terry Gross is my hero.
Yeah. And the Washington Post at one time had like a small series they were doing that I thought was really good, but they stopped doing it. But yeah, those are the ones I listened to.
Cool. What about music? What do you like? What are you listening to right now? What are like all-time favorites?
Oh man, I listen to a ton of different music. That was a big part of like my whole yoga being so unconventional, is that I don't practice to traditional yoga music. But man, like there's just so much of it. I don't think I have one fave. It just goes like any given day, I listen to one song on repeat over and over.
What was it today? Or what is something
today,
that you've been like listening to and liking?
I've listened to a ton of James Blake. Which is different than all the other trap music I listen to. So yeah, but James Blake is amazing. I think he has a new album coming out this year.
Oh, cool! Yeah, good for him.
He leaves his planet on every record he does. So.
All right. Well, the name of this podcast is Let It Out. So when I offer that to you to let it out, is there anything that you wanted to share that you didn't get to, or that you wish that I would have asked, or you want to ask, or that anything that, did I bring you dry for all your wisdom? Anything else you want to say?
You asked so many wonderful things, and I think we got to talk about a lot of like deeper things than most of the time. People think I'm just yoga, which is okay. It's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about yoga.
Which is actually, no, it's fine. It's actually better because it was never just about yoga.
Yeah.
Like even when I got into yoga, it was for depression and anxiety. Like I'm a nerd who likes to read books and who cares about mental health.
Yeah.
Like that's what it really was. But on its face, it looked like yoga. So yoga was just like the avenue that took me here, or took me to the places that I can now go.
Yeah.
So I think that was wonderful.
Okay, that was my conversation with Claire Fountain. She's a delight. You know that by now. Follow her, get obsessed with her. I want to hang out with her way more. And I think that I will, in fact. Maybe we will collaborate on something in the future. I think she's a delight. Thank you so much for listening. As always, share it with someone you think it would be helpful to, who might enjoy it or laugh or feel less alone. I would love for them to hear it as well. Join the listener Facebook group. Maybe check out Patreon if that's something that you're curious about. Check it out. I really love that platform, and I'm really grateful it exists. So check out Patreon, support the sponsors. I'm going to tell you what the emoji is, and I'm also going to tell you who's coming up on the show next week. But first, that's it, actually. I don't have anything else to tell you, so I'll just tell you. Next week, it's my birthday on Monday. If you're listening to this Wednesday, my birthday is on Monday. So next week, I am the guest. Every year, annually, I have my dear friend who has been a podcast guest in the past, maybe my first season, first few episodes, Sasha Jones from Stigley Holistics NYC. My dear friend, she's like my second mom. She interviews me every year. She's my neighbor here in the East Village, and we had a great conversation, and hopefully you like that. So that will be next week. And in the meantime, I'll see you in the Facebook group. Comment the emoji on this podcast, for this podcast, on my Instagram. I'm at Katie Dalebout. Tag Claire, maybe tweet it at me. This week, the emoji is the rain showers, the cloud with the rain and the lightning. I like that one best. It's been raining a lot in New York. April showers bring May flowers. At least they hopefully do. So I'll talk to you guys next week on my birthday episode. And until then, I'll talk to you on the internet. Bye. Today's episode is brought to you in part by FreshBooks.com. You know FreshBooks. You love FreshBooks. If you've been listening for a while, you know that I use FreshBooks. I love it. It's the easy-to-use online cloud accounting software. You can personalize the colors and you can even add your logo. It's great for sending invoices. It really makes you look buttoned up, and it's great for tax season. You can even set up FreshBooks to import expenses directly from your bank account. So whenever you purchase something for your business, it instantly uploads it to FreshBooks. I love it, and FreshBooks is ridiculously easy to set up. It's made for people who don't like dealing with numbers and their taxes. Right now, FreshBooks is offering a free 30-day unrestricted trial to our listeners. So to claim it, just go to freshbooks.com/letitout and enter "Let It Out" in the "How did you hear about us" section. That's freshbooks.com/letitout and enter "Let It Out" in the "How did you hear about us" section. Thank you, FreshBooks. The music you're hearing behind me now and all other original music in this episode is composed by Carolyn Pennypacker Riggs. The album art is by artist Zoe Harmon, and this podcast is produced and edited by Amanda Sharp and hosted by me, Katie Dalebout. Check out our website for show notes to everything mentioned.